My check 1 2, it's the Y2K collector, and I've made a video in the past talking about how people are kind of moving more away from rare video games, right? And I believe, because it's been some time, but I believe when I last spoke about this, I was talking about it within the context of resellers. But now it seems like even less collectors actually care about rare and expensive video games, almost to the point where some of these rare and expensive games are just straight up impractical. Meaning that they're just not games that I would say maybe 90 to 95% of consumers would really even be interested in. And this is something that I had been feeling for some time, um, for a few reasons. For one, I've been noticing a lot more rare and expensive games pop up on GameStop's website, which means people are selling these, trading them in. And it looks like a lot of these rare games are actually sitting. Like I'm seeing more rare items sit on GameStop's website. And I'm not talking about games that are expensive but aren't really rare, like a Def Jam Fight for New York, which Def Jam Fight for New York is expensive, but it's not necessarily rare. Same thing with Silent Hill 3, 2, and 4 and 1. The Silent Hill games aren't necessarily rare. They're just expensive because there are plenty of Silent Hill games to go around. But a game that would be rare would be maybe like Sega Saturn games, or I would say a lot of Sega Saturn games are rare. I would say a lot of Sega CD games are rare. I would say Neo Geo games are rare in general because the systems themselves are more on the rare side. Not many people had a Sega Saturn or a Sega CD or a Neo Geo. So just by virtue of those consoles being rare and obscure, the majority of the games on those consoles are also going to be rare and obscure. Same thing goes for like the Turbo Graphics or the Virtual Boy or the 3DO. Any console that really didn't sell very well commercially, but the diehard gamers who are really interested in exploring things beyond just like the main big three consoles or console makers, anything outside of the norm, those consoles just are rare, right? Because there weren't a lot of people who either A, were interested in buying them, or B, could afford them, because we all know how expensive a console like the Neo Geo was. And so because of that, here now in 2025, when retro game stores do have these games like Neo Geo games, when they do have Sega Saturn games, and when they do have Sega CD games, when these stores now start to have these games, the buyer pool for these games is very small because most people don't even have the consoles required to play these games. And in a lot of cases, there aren't a lot of like, Retron style, aftermarket consoles that will allow you to play these games. Now, I'm not sure if I know that Analog was supposed to have been coming out with a console that would allow you to play Sega Saturn games. I can't remember what it was called, but I think Analog was supposed to have come out with something like that a year or two ago. I don't know if there's any other console outside of one of the versions of the Sega CDs, whether it be the Sega CD Model 1, Model 2. You have the Sega CDX, and I do believe there's another model of the Sega CD that will allow you to play Sega CD games. But outside of those original consoles, I don't know if there's any other aftermarket product that will allow you to play Sega CD games. And so because of that, these games are just very difficult to just casually go into a store and buy because most people don't even have the consoles to play them. And someone who's coming to this realization, or who has come to this realization more and more, is Phoenix Resale. And I only bring up Phoenix Resale because he is probably one of the last really popular YouTubers to actually open up a retro game store. And in one of his last videos, he pretty much lamented having rare games, some of these Sega CD and Sega Saturn games, because they sit. And for a reseller, games that sit aren't really valuable because they're not getting their cash back for what they paid for the game. So really, there's The velocity of the sale matters just as much as how much you're able to profit off of a sale. And because of this, resellers are not viewing a lot of these rare games as, you know, items that they want to have, because most people will not be able to buy them. And if they do get them, depending on where they're at, they're gonna just sit. Now, Phoenix Resale Store is somewhere in Kentucky, and I don't know how many people in Kentucky were really into like the Neo Geo or the Sega Saturn, or you know, Sega CD. In a lot of the in a lot of parts of the country, I feel like more people were really concentrated on Nintendo, and I feel like in other parts of the country, people were really more concentrated on like Sega, but there was also that Nintendo factor there as well, because Nintendo was just everywhere. But I don't feel like Sega was everywhere. Not everybody got it, not every child wanted it, and some parents just downright didn't get it for their kids. And so when you see some of these rare games, in a lot of instances, a lot of people just won't care about them. A lot of people will step over a copy of Popful Mail and run and get a copy of Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, because that's something that they can identify with. It's on the GameCube. It's Pokemon. It's something they're more familiar with, and they're gonna want to play that game. And even though Batman Forever and Popful Mail and Last Resort are really expensive games, and probably far more rare than Gale of Darkness, because Gale of Darkness 2 is somewhat of a common game on the GameCube. It's not rare at all, but it's just expensive. You know, People are still going to wind up choosing those GameCube games over these rare items. And so I think it really kind of does something good, I think, for collectors in 2025. Because the only people who really care about these games at this stage of the game, no pun intended, are collectors. Collectors are the only ones, in my opinion, who really care about these complete in box Sega Saturn classic games, these complete in box Neo Geo games. You'd have to really be a collector to really care about these games, because most people won't care. Most people, they just want, give them their Pokemon, give them their, their God of Wars, give them their, Ghost of Tsushima's, give them all of their AAA titles, their big box titles, the stuff that they see on GameStop commercials, the stuff that they see, you know, widely advertised and marketed. That's the stuff that those folks want. They're really not interested in the retro stuff. And the rare stuff. And I think for someone like me, that's great, because hopefully that means over the next few years, I can really start to nail down some of these grail items that I still have on my wish list, especially when it comes to consoles like the Sega Saturn and the Sega CD. But these could just be my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below. Do you think people still care about rare, obscure games in 2025? Or do you think it's really just all about the main popular titles? Let me know your thoughts. I'll catch you in the next one. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.